My Lords, in making a brief contribution, I'm delighted to be able to follow Lady Hayter, thank her for her initiative in bringing this debate to us, and also for the way in which she set out the issues so well. I'm a patron of Hong Kong Watch and a vice chair of the all-party parliamentary groups on Hong Kong and the Uyghurs, and I and my family are sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party. In 2019, I was part of the international team which monitored the last free and fair elections in Hong Kong. And earlier today, during question time, I highlighted the fate of some of the legislators and pro-democracy activists whom I met. Some, like British citizen Jimmy Lai, whom I know, are among the 1,200 incarcerated in Hong Kong jails. Others are among the exiles, like Nathan Law, who is resident in the United Kingdom, and on each of whose heads a bounty of 1 million Hong Kong dollars has been placed. Their only crime, my lords, is to believe in democracy. The Chinese Communist Party has suppressed every last vestige of democracy, free speech, and the rule of law, turning its corpse into a mere tool of the CCP in implementing the draconian national security law. I agree with the Noble Lord Patton of Barnes and the Noble Lord Fortune of Forreston, who said last night that those remaining British judges lending respectability to the CCP's courts should search their consciences. By contrast, the admirable, courageous heroism of defenders of Hong Kong's freedoms is of a piece with the protesters who were massacred in Tiananmen Square in April 1989. Who can ever forget the solitary defiance of Tank Man, who stood in the square in front of a CCP tank? Such individual acts inspire and keep alive the hope that, as in Berlin in November 1989, even the most solid-looking walls can be brought down. My friend Bob Fu was among the protesters who survived the massacre, and he subsequently escaped. He says, I quote, "It was absolutely shocking because we'd never imagined by sitting in the peaceful Tiananmen Square, which translated literally means square of heavenly peace, that our so-called People's Government would send the so-called People's Liberation Army to shoot its own people." Until July 2020, Hong Kong was one of the remaining cities in China where, as we heard, people were free to publicly commemorate Tiananmen and to honour the lives of those who were murdered at the hands of the CCP. For organising the candlelit vigils in Hong Kong's Victoria Park, activists like the lawyer Chow Hang Tung is now behind bars, facing the prospect of many years in prison under the national security law. All of this is of a piece to silence British parliamentarians, exiled legislators and activists. It all demonstrates that the CCP is literally scared stiff of dissent. And that is why they're using bounties, arrest warrants and threats of extradition to close down debate. It's why they try to remove all references to Tiananmen and to censor school books and the internet. Add to this the way in which the CCP tries to extend its long arm to reach overseas and to threaten the well-being and safety of pro-democracy activists who are under the protection of the UK government, and it's pretty clear with the kind of authoritarian regime with which we're dealing. I include in that number the significant BNO community and also students at universities like Southampton who were recently set upon by CCP thugs. And I also remind the Minister of the attack on peaceful protesters outside the consulate by consular officials in Manchester. As I noted in my remarks last Friday in our defence debate, disappointingly, the United Kingdom government continues to send the CCP very mixed messages when it comes to the value, which I know the Noble Lord the Minister places on human rights, and the international treaty guarantees that supposedly uphold Hong Kong's autonomy, and which the CCP has trashed. The genius of two systems, one country has been replaced by the totalitarian model of one system, one party. Is it any surprise that the CCP thinks it can get away with this and encourage the illegal use of bounty hunters on UK soil and threatens the safety of British overseas nationals, when, for instance, we continue to drag our feet on stripping out 1 million Chinese-made surveillance cameras from government departments in the public sector supply chain? Does Xi Jinping take the UK seriously when after 3 years of relentless and unprecedented crackdown in Hong Kong, the Foreign Secretary is chomping at the bit to visit Beijing to sign investment and trade agreements with China, with a country with which we have a trade deficit of over £40 billion. So much for promoting national resilience and less dependency. Question to the Minister: does he believe it's licit to do business as usual with a country credibly accused by the British House of Commons, amongst others, and by President Biden, of committing genocide against Uyghurs in Xinjiang? And if not, why was a minister from this House sent to Hong Kong to deepen trade deals? And can we really claim that we take national security seriously when so many of our academic research institutions continue to pursue sensitive research partnerships on dual-use technology with Chinese universities with links to the People's Liberation Army? My Lords, ministers and officials are responsible for the safety of our citizens at home and for our international treaty responsibilities overseas. But in 2 Select Committee reports from our House of Lords, International Relations and Defence Select Committee, we concluded that British policy represents a strategic void. When it comes to these issues and keeping their word, you can't believe a word the Chinese Communist Party and its chairman Xi Jinping says. Tiananmen, Hong Kong, Xinjiang, Tibet and Taiwan all reinforce that message.
My Lords,